What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Investing Bros live show. We got a little bit of a different show for you guys today. Apple came out with their Apple 16, their iPhone 16. And while some people were really excited about and anticipating this launch, it's been extremely disappointing. In fact, shareholders are down 1% since it happened, and it's causing many to believe that we could see a further dip in the Apple price. With that said, at the same time, crypto is moving to the upside. Why? Because we got some big stuff happening over the next 24 hours that could have major impact. We have the debate tonight. We have inflation numbers tomorrow morning. How will crypto respond? How will Apple respond? And the rest of the financial markets. We're going to cover all of that and a whole lot more in today's show. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. If you're watching over on X, make sure to follow all the accounts associated with the bros. But first, we got to roll the intro. Wow. Yeah. A little cut off of the music. New transition. T-Shrew.
That's right.
How you doing?
I'm doing better than I deserve, Tim. I thought I would be 100% today. I'm still feeling a little bit under the weather, but okay. We're here. We're grinding it out. Luckily, I work from home. So
you still drinking all that honey?
Yeah, actually been taking some spoonfuls of the locally sourced Florida honey, and it is still delicious.
Very good. Good. Listen, the bees care, and that's why the bees are there.
Seeing Lisa J. Stocks in the chat. What's going on, Lisa? Good to see you.
Very nice. Well, T-Shroom, we're going to talk a little different today. A lot of times we mostly just focus in the crypto world, but the headline story today in the stock world, Apple. But Apple, obviously in the technology world, very closely associated with cryptocurrencies. Actually, if you look at it a lot, I know, T-Shroom, you've been looking more into this. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but crypto and small tech stocks have really been trading very similarly. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think most of that reason why is because while there are still millions of crypto enthusiasts out there, there are a lot of just good old tech investors that are dabbling in the crypto world, but they view cryptocurrency and those tech stocks as being the same. So look forward. If you guys are excited about the bros talking more stocks going in the future, we need to know that that's what you want. So you got to smash the like. You got to leave ones in chat, say yes, more stocks. And we'll make sure to bring more of that your way. But today you will get a special edition of that. But first, we're going to start off as we always do, T-Shirt. It's still a crypto mainly focused show in the sense that we got to check out how crypto as a whole is performing today over the last 24 hours with the bubbles. A lot of green here, a lot of big green bubbles here. Phantom continuing to rise up. FTM 10%, FET 11.3, BSV 8.8, Rune 7. Mantra 6.8, Aave continuing on its little tear as we told you guys it would. It's up 7.4. You got Caspa over here hiding behind T-Shroom at 4. Stacks is over here at 3.6. Optimism hiding behind me, one of those, the hotter layer 2 solutions for Ethereum, doing very, very well. And I'm going to say a little bit more about Optimism here, T-Shroom. There is a chance there's a coin that I'm going to probably transfer almost all of my coin into Optimism. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. Stick around if you want to know what that is. But as a whole, there's a couple of red coins like Stark and Gala and Tron. But as a whole, it's mostly green today, what you want to see in the markets. If you take a look really quickly at the Bitcoin charts, we're continuing to make a nice little climb here. Even here just a couple of minutes ago, we got back up close to that 58,000. I think we actually kissed $58,000 once again. Of course, if you guys have been watching the show here, we talked about a lot yesterday morning, how Bitcoin had in fact hit a buy signal here on the daily chart, and that should signal a rally. Historically, we see the price go back up to the smart trail on that same time frame. This case, the daily chart. Well, we're talking about $62,000. Now, I'm not going to be taking profit at $62,000. Just in case my analysis is a little off with a little bit of error, I'm probably looking to take profit at $61,000 while anticipating I'm going to be taking profit a little early on this trade. However, if that smart trail is broken, go back to it here, T-Shroom. If we end up breaking above this descending smart trail, and we start to push towards 65,000, I will, T-Shroom, be looking for another entry position because that would spell massive momentum for the bulls, something that you absolutely want to see. Another thing I want to point out here on Bitcoin, I said this earlier this morning to our VIP trading group, and it's better on some other coins. Like, for example, I actually want to show you, I'll show you back on Bitcoin as well. But let's take a real quick look at Cardano. I'm going to show you the Cardano chart, but I want you guys to pay attention to what I'm about to say because this will apply to every single coin or asset that you are investing in or trading in. This is a TA or technical analysis tool just to add to your bag of when to know that the bottom is in. And again, I'm going to be actually speculating here because the bottom isn't officially in yet in the sense of we haven't had a massive rally. But historically, when this happens, what I'm about to show you, this historically marks local bottoms and rallies incoming. What am I talking about right here? Well, let's take a look. Since here on Cardano, just like the rest of the crypto space, it topped out, had the high of this whole bull run back up here in March of 2024. But then we've since then gone into a phase of lower lows and lower highs, what we would call a bear trend, where the markets just cannot catch a break. It's nothing but downside action. But notice, if you take a look at the volume down below, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Every single time we find a small localized bottom position, like back here around April 13th, you're going to notice that the volume spikes on the reversal candles, right? We see a small, it's not really a bounce up. We kind of just trade sideways for a while before we see another drop once again. And then here again, around July 5th, we see another spike in volume when we find a bottom position. We see a small little rally, come back up here, but it's once again a lower high. We come back down, find a bottom here on August 5th, where again, we see a spike in volume. But recently, this most recent bottom flash back here on September 6th, you're going to notice there was no large volume flash. Why is this? You're going to see this across several coins in the space. Bitcoin, if you correspond all of these big dips, you're going to find little spikes in the average volume versus this most recent one. It's not really that much of a spike. There's a small spike here on Bitcoin, but not really that big of one. If you take a look at other coins like Link, for example, no volume spike. If you look at, let's go Polkadot, no volume spike. As a whole, we are seeing that this most recent bottom position came with no volume spike. And what that communicates, or what the charts are showing you, is that every single time we've pulled down to these local bottoms during this bear trend, there's always been a lot of buying pressure to scoop it up. Well, that buying pressure more than likely is coming from retail buying up the dip, even longer term retail investors who know that was a good opportunity to buy in. But they proved to all of the manipulators out there, the people who want to buy cheaper and cheaper and cheaper assets, they proved, well, there's still a lot of liquidity right there. We haven't necessarily shook out all of the retail investors that potentially could still sell. For that reason, we went even lower. And if you go back to my chart here, T-Shroom, every single time we dropped these lows, high volume came in, communicating a high amount of buying pressure. As long as there's a high amount of buying pressure at these levels, it also marks levels of high liquidity. But when you get what we would call a low volume spring, this is according to a teaching from Richard Wyckoff. He's also the man that came up with the theory of the composite man. You guys know we love talking about that. But his theory is these low volume springs are areas where there really was no amazing buy pressure. There simply was just no more selling pressure. And these, more often than not, are the moments that those manipulators, those whales, those long-term investors, those institutions trying to shake out and steal all the lunch money from the kids on the playground, this is their moment to say, that's it. We can't shake this out any lower. So historically, when we see these low volume springs, these are often seen as bottom positions. And we're seeing that in a great amount across much of the crypto space, especially a lot of the main altcoins that we keep an eye on. So that's something I wanted to just show you guys. Whatever asset you're following, whatever you're looking at, I encourage you to check it out. Check out all the recent dips recently. Have you seen a low volume spring recently? And that's your key that the bottom is in on that asset. With that said, T-Shroom, let's transition here and let's take a quick look at the stock world, specifically Apple. Apple is going to be the big story. We're going to transition here, go from charts into the stories. But let's just start off with what the charts are saying right now. They had a massive announcement here recently, and yet the price action it's really not doing anything. The only reason why today is actually a bullish candle, you might say, Tim, that's a white candle right there. Isn't that very, very bullish? Well, if you understand how candles work, yesterday when the market closed, it closed at $220.91. But in the pre-markets, or where we opened this morning at 9:30, we opened lower down here at $2.18. And we've since then closed what we would call a gap. Officially, this actually was a small gap, and we've already closed it. That does not mean, just because today's candle is white, that this is a very bullish call for Apple. It's actually something that is very concerning because it's showing that despite this massive announcement with the newest edition of the iPhone, in this case, the iPhone 16, the initial response is extremely disappointing. The initial response is saying that these things are pretty much just the iPhone 15 with a new covering. No new additions. It's something that would cause stockholders to be very bearish and sell their positions. Let's take a look, though, at what the charts are saying here. Let's start off by just taking a look at our oscillators. You'll notice here on the daily chart, we've actually not really been bullish at all here for a while. We had a very small buy order back in here that ended up being perfect, but it did not communicate long-term bullishness. And then once again, you come back over here and we get a sell order on August 30th. Not seeing any signs right now that sell order is coming to a close. If I take a look at the RSI, we have lost the 50, in a small way retested that 50 as resistance, and now we're heading down lower. Very opposite of what we're seeing currently across several Bitcoin charts. Our MACD chart, the blue line, has crossed bearishly below that orange line, the average price movement, and is picking up steam to the downside. Nothing encouraging happening on that chart as well. And then, of course, the Lux Algo, as I mentioned, we are currently been under a sell order since right back here on September 3rd. And it's slowly but surely curving, but there's a lot of room to the downside here, T-Shroom, that is saying that we are not sitting in a position of oversold. We're not sitting in a position of saying that a bunch of people want to buy. It gets even worse when we turn on these indicators where you'll see here more recently, we had that great rejection at the daily smart trail, and we are making a move to the downside. These things are showing we could at least come back down towards 211 if you're taking a look on the daily chart. But the next order block, the next level we have any type of liquidations whatsoever on the daily chart at least is all the way back down towards 198. You're also going to see the confluence of that green support band coming up. The question is, does Apple stop there though, T-Shroom, or do we see it potentially fall to the next level of actual liquidity where we see this large red band coming in down here towards 180? The best way to think about this, though, is the longer time frames right now. Weekly chart showing overextension. We do see the weekly smart trail and an order block here around 200. So I think that's going to be an interesting spot to watch. This did break to the upside out of a bullish formation, but I'm wondering here, T-Shroom, if this is going to end up being a little bit of a bull trap. Let me explain what I'm looking at right here. This rising level of resistance, that red line right there, and this rising level of support, this blue line right here, is forming what we would call a rising wedge pattern. Traditionally, these end up breaking to the downside. However, at the moment, we broke to the upside. That's actually extremely bullish. But there are lots of times where these bearish formations give us a little bit of what we call a bull trap and rally to the upside before eventually coming farther to the downside. I'm not ready to say I'm predicting for certain a move down back below 200 and a move down here towards 160, 140. But it is something to keep an eye on. Short term, that daily chart, it is showing that we have room to the downside. If we lose this red line, let's go back to it, T-Shroom. If we lose this red line, if we lose $200, there's a decent chance that we're going to have a much larger fall here on Apple, and it's probably going to have a lot to do with this recent announcement coming in as a flop. But for more on that, I want to throw it over to T-Shroom. Let's get into the news on this and cover what is going on with Apple. How are people responding? What do you got for us?
Tim, it's shiny. It's new. It's the iPhone 16, and while it had a lot of tech geeks really excited, over at CNET, they were not so excited at all. Said, sorry, Apple, AI isn't enough to get me to upgrade to the new iPhone 16. Ouch. That is a tough headline for a company that really relies on a lot of tech reviewers to make sales happen. But Tim, it doesn't stop there because there is a headline circulating around mainstream news in global financial markets that really could affect Apple's bottom line, and it's this. Apple must pay 13 billion euros in back taxes, the EU's top court rules. There is no higher court to appeal this to, as far as I understand, Tim. This case has never been about how much taxes we pay, but which government we are required to pay it to. We always pay all the taxes we owe wherever we operate, and there has never been a special deal. An Apple spokesperson said the European Commission is trying to retroactively change the rules and ignore that, as required by international tax law. Our income was already subject to taxes in the United States. So that's the statement there. I don't think it's going to be enough, though, to keep investors happy, right? And as we saw on the charts, not looking as bullish as it could, this could be a recipe for not just Apple to see some downside, but for the rest of the S&P 500 to see some downside, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones as well. So this could also translate over into crypto, although that is beginning to be a stretch. And one thing we should note is that Apple hasn't really responded to this news yet, as this is a headline from today, from this morning at around 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, market's not really reacting to this headline, just kind of staying sideways. You have a little bit of this bismal kind of bearish sentiment, but then you also have a little bit of this bullish new sexy product release. So the market's going to have to figure out which way Apple's going to go here in the next couple of weeks. And of course, Tim, we've got some very, very interesting developments coming up very quickly, which brings us to our next story. 2 key inflation reports this week will help decide the size of the Fed's interest rate cut. So ultimately, this is going to be much more market moving than which way Apple goes. So let's get into it here. On Wednesday, the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics will release its Consumer Price Index CPI report for August. A day later, the BLS issues its Producer Price Index report, also for August, a measure used as a proxy for costs of the wholesale value. Inflation data has taken a backseat to labor market data in terms of influence on Fed policy, Citigroup econ Veronica Clark said in a note, but with markets and likely Fed officials themselves split on the appropriate size of the first rate cut September 18th, August CPI could remain an important factor in the upcoming decision. So, of course, we've reported on the way that these economic data prints have been coming out, the way that the market's been reporting on it. Tim, do you agree here with Citigroup's Veronica Clark that the CPI that is yet to print, that will come out on Wednesday, that is going to actually be significant to the FOMC, to Jerome Powell?
It's got to be at least something. Again, it's not going to be the biggest indicator to him. I think most of what he needs to see, he's seen. I think that Jerome Powell and the Fed have a very good idea of what they're going to do a week from tomorrow on the 18th. With that said, he's never going to ignore new information. I think the probability, though, of these numbers being unfavorable, I think there's some people out there that think that magically tomorrow, for the first time in a long time, the inflation numbers are going to reveal what people perceive to be the truth, and it's going to come in crazy, crazy high. I wouldn't count on it. I would count that whoever is addressing the data points, whoever's manipulating them, whoever's trying to cause whatever they want to cause, they're going to keep doing their job, and they're going to keep doing it pretty well here, T-Shroom. They're going to be able to keep these numbers looking favorable. Why? Because they're really trying to push right now that we are entering what is called a soft landing, meaning, yes, we had inflation problems, but we never really allowed unemployment to get out of control. Now, you might say it is out of control, but the data points say it's not. We never allowed the jobs to get out of control, but now that the jobs are starting to feel some pain, it is time to pivot, start cutting rates, make it easier for companies to borrow money, therefore hire more people, produce more products, yada, yada, yada. All of this is just roses and rainbows. That's what they're going to try to continue to pitch as what is happening right here. And as long as that is what the data is saying, and that's how the Fed is responding, whether you believe it or not, that is what will have the major impact on markets. In this case, should be extremely, extremely bullish, making people feel confident about the future of the economy, and therefore prices go up. That doesn't mean that that's reality. That does not mean that we're not facing a recession coming very, very soon. Heck, you can make a very good argument. We've been in one large drawn out recession now for a couple of years. It's just not what the data points say. It's not how the important decision makers are treating it. So therefore, it's not really the biggest impact on how markets respond. I want to take a look here, T-Shroom. Let's take a look at the QQQ. Looking actually pretty good here on the daily chart, getting a nice little bounce here off of the daily smart trail. That's actually very, very bullish. We're currently still under a buy signal from back here on August, August 15th, that I think we got close to, but we could definitely still make a move back up here towards 490 levels we haven't seen since back in July. Our oscillators actually are looking pretty bullish here as well. This is very much the opposite of Apple, where we had kind of formed some form of a bottom out. That's not, I don't think that's bullish divergence. It's not bullish divergence. So not a major reversal, but it is positive momentum on our RSI heading back up towards that 50. It'd be nice to see it get above there here on the QQQ. The MACD looks like it wants to start turning over and going back to being bullish. We could see a bullish cross here in the next couple of days. And then you have the Lux Algo, technically a small buy signal here, T-Shroom. We had a green reversal dot, green momentum, and that money flow, after being negative here since this peak back on August 21st, is curving back to the upside. And I'll tell you right now, based off of everything that I just said, if it is true, inflation numbers aren't out of control and they can continue to spin this web of a soft landing potential coming, it's not just crypto that will respond very well. Historically, the stock market performs very, very well under soft landing pivots in rate cuts. That's something that would be very, very bullish for the QQQ, for the stock market, and financial markets as a whole. Maybe not individuals like Apple, who has some problems they got to deal with, but for much of the market, we are seeing a lot of positive signs developing here on the charts.
Absolutely. All right, Tim, well, let's go ahead and jump on into a couple of scrappy headlines here that are going to excite some, may mean nothing to others. PayPal Venmo to accept ENS human-readable blockchain names. That's all we're going to cover there, but this is pretty big. If you're heavily invested in ENS, Ethereum Name Service, this could be a pretty big breakthrough headline for you. Don't want to let that one slip through the cracks for the ENS hodlers. All right, let's move into Bitcoin news. Starting here with this headline, U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs see 28.6 million in net inflows on September 9th after 8 days of outflows. Now, this is not that big of a number, and can give you some reference here by checking out the sosovalue.xyz chart here. You can see just above Tim's head, that little green sprout is what we're looking at. This is from the 9th. Of course, going all the way back to these candlesticks back here, these histograms, I should say. In earlier 2024, this is when the market was roaring higher, blazing through 40,000, 50,000, and settling up at 73 and change. Now there's been kind of a dismal, little bit of a plateau of activity at fireworks, but we have seen recently a decent amount of outflow, but that outflow period looks like it's coming to a conclusion with this most recent day of data from those ETFs. So how do you read this? What is, the ultimate conclusion here? Ultimately, it's, just as business as usual with these ETFs. There's going to be down days. There's going to be up days. And look, tonight there's a very big event at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've got two American candidates that are going to be debating. And I do think that is going to be somewhat market moving for Bitcoin, right? If Donald Trump performs better, I think that's bullish for Bitcoin. Now, I don't think that's going to play a giant role in the long-term future of Bitcoin at all. I think it's going to be kind of something Bitcoin kind of turns into a little mini casino for a few hours during that event, which is kind of funny. But Tim, what is your read here on the ETF inflows and outflows? 28 million, nothing really to sneeze at, not impressive, but it is an end to a few days of outflows here.
Yeah, so it's going to be the same as it's been here for a little bit. We've been talking about the ETFs for a while. The ETFs are going to have major impact on Bitcoin and Ethereum prices moving forward, but some people are a little overreactive to both sides. If you were surprised that the ETF with Bitcoin started off with a bang and then has been disappointing since March, you shouldn't be. We were all prepared for the fact that now that BlackRock and these larger players were going to finally get their hands into some serious Bitcoin liquidity, they were going to be able to manipulate the markets in ways. They had that initial big pump. Well, A lot of times those pumps have to come a little bit of a cool off. Ethereum has pretty much been a flop since it opened, but it's only been open now for a couple of months. It is way too soon to judge the long-term success rate of these ETFs, but I'll tell you there's a very glaring sign that they're going to be successful, and one of those reasons is that BlackRock is still heavily involved. If you take a look at the BlackRock specific ETFs, they're actually the main reason why that headline yesterday we covered about Van Eck dropping their Ethereum ETF, it's really BlackRock's fault. Why? Because BlackRock is taking all of the demand, all of the attention. Anyone who's looking to get into the ETFs in the Bitcoin space, they're going after BlackRock. And this is something, if you remember, T-Shirt, we actually talked about when the ETFs first started coming out. I think at one point there was like 8 or 9 different options. Oh, no, actually, at one point there was 15 options, or at least talked about 15 options. And we said, like, is there any chance that these 15 options stick around for the next couple of years? And we gave it very little possibility. Why? Because the cream's always going to rise to the top of the glass. There's always going to be the competition that weeds out the weak. And BlackRock has used these last couple of months as a beautiful opportunity to steal all of the demand, to steal all of the value. They've made their fees extremely low temporarily to squeeze the market so that everyone comes to them. And if anyone ever tries to sell theirs, they just buy it up. So it looks really good. And then when all the competition is gone, they'll simply raise the fees, but they'll be the only option. And then they will make a whole lot of money because people will be lining up at their doors, figuratively. I don't think that's really how it works, but they'll be lining up to buy in that Bitcoin ETF because it's the only game left in town. That's what's happening right now. This has been a masterclass chess move from BlackRock to squeeze every other competitor out. They're not finished. They're going to keep on doing some different things, but at the moment, their plan is working. They're being successful. Everyone else is not successful. This doesn't change anything to me, T-Shroom. This doesn't have a long-term impact on saying that Bitcoin's not going to be good. It's actually just saying this is what manipulators do. They manipulate. They drive everyone else away. They buy the dip, and then they make a whole lot of money.
Absolutely. And this is what we were talking about today in Deep Talks on Discord. You can sign up for our Discord and you get access to the stories that we do not talk about here on the show. Sometimes it's for a reason. Sometimes it's just because we don't talk about it and it requires a longer conversation. But you can find those conversations on Tuesdays at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time in our Discord, and you're going to have a lot of fun. We would really look forward to having you join us there. Absolutely. Top Legend says smash the likes. Definitely go ahead and smash those likes. Let's see. Username said, I won't lie. I bought Bitcoin ETFs for fun. Fast fact, T-Shroom, I actually bought every single Bitcoin ETF the day that they were available. So
nice.
Not a lot.
I actually didn't know that. Did you say that on the show before and I missed it?
I think I kept it exclusive for the Discord members. Not that it's really earth-shattering. I didn't buy very much of it.
Tim has bought 0 ETFs. Yeah. So that you have to do that with you. I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Username, you harassed it in chat every day now. We're going to get this out of the way, and we're going to put this to bed. There is an Investing Bros fantasy football group. It's closed, so no one else can join at the moment. It's not really important, that detail. What is important that Username wants me to talk about T-Stream, and he wants your take on it.
Okay.
I got obliterated in week 1, right? My picks didn't work out. It's week 1 of the NFL. My team did not perform well. Username really wants us to talk about it. That's all I'm going to say. I lost. It's over. We're moving on to week 2. T-Shroom, do you want to rub any salt in the wound before we move on from the topic?
Yes, we are going to head into our obligatory football section of the Investing Bros show. Tim, I am saddened to hear this news. I really thought better of you when it came to...
I know. I thought better of myself.
So
I thought my picks were good.
Now, what I will say, though, Tim, is that there's always a brighter tomorrow, and that's the silver lining that I'm going to find today for you. And that was the conclusion of our Investing Bros Football Corner, and we love to have a little bit of fun. And Tim, we've actually
shout out to Montana Viking. He is who beat me in week 1. He said I won my first game. Yes, he did, because he beat me, and I lost. So there you go. Tim's a loser. That's
very nice.
We're going to move on. Let's go on. Let's go on to the next one.
All right, yeah. So we've actually got, this is a pretty bullish chart, Tim, and you sent this to me earlier today. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. I couldn't believe it. Big breaking news. Bitwise CEO says we're going to have a bullish Q4. And just to break down this chart very quickly, you'll notice here this histogram that is negative 4.5, and this is, I believe, the average of September's, and on average, then October, when there is a negative September, absolutely breaks out. Is that how you read this chart as well, Tim?
I don't know if I saw. I sent it to you because it caught my headline. I didn't actually even read it. So, but he's just showing the historical Q4 being a very bullish quarter, right?
Yeah.
I
So
think it's going to be again. There's so many reasons for it to be again, but even the historical precedent. I'll tell you this. I've said it before. I want to make sure I'm fair. I am not a big believer in just because something has always happened in the past or usually happens in the past, it has to happen again. I'm not a big fan of the sell in May and walk away, and I'm not a fan of September's are X percentage red, X percentage green. A lot of times those details have more convenience wrapped behind them and less facts. The reason, though, Q4 might legitimately be historically a great quarter and will continue to be historically a great quarter with few exceptions is obviously what happens in Q4. The most spending economically all year. You got Thanksgiving there. I mean, you got Halloween at the end of October. That's a major holiday. You got Thanksgiving there at the end of November, major family holiday. Christmas at the end of December, and of course New Year's, all wrapped up within like 40-something, 50-something days, right? What happens around all of those? People go berserk spending money on family, buying gifts, yada, yada, yada. It stirs up a lot of the economy. Maybe some of you are saying, well, don't retail investors take profit on their investments to go buy those gifts? Yeah, maybe they do. But then big old boss man down at the local store, he makes a buttload of profit, says, well, I don't want to, have a bunch of free money on the side. I need to do something. I need to invest this money so I don't have crazy high taxes. He goes and invests, and the markets pump because it's the opportunity for the rich to get even richer. So while I'm not a fan of just the historical, this month is usually bullish, this month is usually bearish, there's evidence and there's factual understanding as to why Q4s more often than not are very, very bullish, and I think that's going to happen once again.
Absolutely. And finally, I found this graphic that has the actual explanation here. Bitcoin's average returns by month since 2010. So if history repeats itself, we're in for a very bullish fourth quarter. Although, Tim, it feels like we're not. It feels like, the recession fears, the jobs data fears, all of this is causing a lot of fear, a lot of fudding in the markets. And ultimately, this is a time to look up and remember, what is Bitcoin? Has Bitcoin changed? No. The answer is no. We're about to hear from someone who knows Bitcoin better than most people, right? And that's the CEO of Marathon Digital, one of the biggest mining farms in North America. But what has changed? The macro environment. And Tim, this isn't the first time that T-Shroom has gone on about this on the show. I say this almost every show, and I'm going to say it again. The macro environment is always going to be changing. It's always going to be in flux, right? Liquidity is going to be ample and assets go to the upside. Liquidity is going to be restricted and assets for a period come down, right? That's just the cyclical nature of investing and trading. However, if you're invested in good, sturdy companies like a Microsoft, like Nvidia, like Amazon, like Apple until this weekend, right? And certainly like Bitcoin and Ethereum, those companies, those projects are solid value. And if you have high conviction in them, you buy when the price is down, right? So let's take a look. Let's take a listen to the CEO of Marathon Digital here as he talks about national security around Bitcoin. Let's take a look, Tim. Let's take a listen.
The national security concern for this country. Russia is the world's second largest Bitcoin mining nation. Countries that operate on a Bitcoin standard from a perspective of transacting and holding Bitcoin can transact outside of the sanctions environment. They can transact outside of government controls. If the US does not have a substantial amount of Bitcoin mining onshore, they can be locked out, and US companies can be locked out of transacting their Bitcoin. So strategic ownership of block space is of a national security concern. And that's why with 40% of global Bitcoin mining in the US must maintain dominance, not just in Bitcoin mining, but also in the holding of Bitcoin assets in US companies, whether they're ETFs, whether they're Bitcoin mining companies, whether it's MicroStrategy. But the US must maintain dominance because by the same reason the US holds 40% of the gold reserves in the world, they can exert influence in financial markets. They have to do that as the world transitions to digital currencies.
Okay, it's incredibly well.
So some really interesting words there from the Marathon CEO. That, of course, was an interview there with Anthony Scaramucci. I don't exactly know the context of that interview, but that was one where you don't get to hear a ton from Marathon CEO. You don't hear a ton from the CEO of any crypto Bitcoin mining company. They're usually very busy. But Tim, this is definitely bringing in echoes of the thesis from Software, the book by Jason Lowry, that kind of talks. You see where I'm going with this, Tim? That kind of talks about the future of Bitcoin could potentially be a lot more kind of a conflict between China and the United States and other strong countries that actually see Bitcoin mining as an attack vector, actually not so much an attack vector, that would be the incorrect term, but as a way to power project to mine Bitcoin so that the protocol can remain stable. And Tim, when we hear these words coming from someone like the CEO of Marathon, it just kind of trots that theory a little bit forward in time. I wonder, Tim, how far off into the future do you think this theory is, or do you think that we're already there? Do you think that potentially China and America are kind of hiding this, and they're doing so much more Bitcoin mining than people realize?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say anything with certainty that it's currently there's a full-blown war on this end, but I think it's coming sooner than people would think. And I think what you kind of led there at the end, it's a very good point. We will not find out the minute it does become serious. Like whether right now there's American officials already considering this, Chinese officials, Russian officials already consider this, I don't know for certain. It's got to be on someone's mind. But is it a serious issue? Maybe not. That being said, it will become a serious issue long before the public understands that it is. And that's where those of us who have an understanding of what Bitcoin actually is. Let's slow down here for anyone who maybe isn't necessarily extremely knowledgeable on Bitcoin. We're gonna be in the next couple of months creating some great content on the whys of Bitcoin, the whys of different altcoins, what they actually fundamentally do. Not just how much money can you make off if you buy the coin at this price, but actually what does the coin offer the world? And Bitcoin has probably the most important, most vital aspect of value aside from money, in the sense that it offers actual power. It offers actual power to not just the elites, but to the everyday person as well. But with that said, I believe Satoshi Nakamoto completely understood that someday the governments would try to utilize it against each other. But that's why you have something so beautiful like we have a 51% attack, right? So Bitcoin is a completely trustless system of information, but also value. That's why it's so good. That's why it is going to be so valuable. However, if you could get a hold of more than 51% of the mining and you have control over those miners, you in theory would have control over that asset. And I think the future of Bitcoin, people ask about the profitability of mining it long term, right? There are still profitable miners. People can make a lot of money mining it. Some people still mine it privately. Eventually, just so you guys know, there will not be a Jane Doe or John Doe sitting in the middle of Arkansas profitably mining Bitcoin, right? The cost of electricity is just going to far exceed any type of rewards they would get. In fact, even these large institutions and companies like Marathon and CleanSpark and others, I believe there will become a day where they will cease to be profitable on how they mine Bitcoin. But you want to know why Bitcoin will continue to be mined and will continue to be operational? Because governments are going to get involved and start allotting a budget to mining Bitcoin. Why? Because they understand if any one entity, and I'll include the United States in this, even if the United States has too much of the mining control of Bitcoin, I see that as a danger to Bitcoin as a whole. It's actually a beautiful thing that I think Satoshi thought about when creating it way back in 2008, that he knew eventually it would be spread out across governments worldwide, almost like, and I don't want to go too far in this, but almost like the same way nuclear weapons right now. I'm really hoping what I'm about to say is true. I don't think that nuclear weapons are going to be used. Why? Because they would just wreak so much havoc. They would end the planet. The minute somebody sends a nuclear weapon into another country and activates it, millions of people will die there, and then there will be a response, and then millions of people will die there, and before you know it, the entire world is over. Nuclear weapons serve way more as an insurance policy than they do an actual ability to wage war on people. It's just, hey, don't mess with us. We have a nuke. Well, don't mess with this person either because they have a nuke. And it keeps people in line. Well, in the same way, it's a long way of me saying it, but Bitcoin's going to get to a level where Bitcoin is the most valuable asset on the planet. It will surpass gold, in my personal opinion. But the governments will continue to mine it because they do not want any one entity. China does not want America. America does not want Russia or China or Brazil or India. No one country is going to have a majority of the mining in their country, and therefore that trustless perfection of what Bitcoin is will stay intact, and it will remain the most valuable asset worldwide and possibly for the rest of the world's existence, however long that might be. That's what I see the future of it, and I think what Marathon CEO is getting at is saying we have to protect that. We cannot get into a position where we as Americans, even in the government, go bearish and say, we're going to pass on the Bitcoin mining and allow China and Russia, who I believe are absolutely quietly right now acquiring the ability to mine more and more and more Bitcoin. We cannot allow them or even the combination of those two countries have more than 51% of the mining. That would be disastrous for Bitcoin, disastrous for the planet. I don't think that's going to happen, and that's what he's addressing right now.
Kyle Field says the Poles will headquarter the most mining. I don't know about that. That's interesting. It's an interesting thought. Retro Mike, we had him on the X Spaces last night and dumped a whole bunch of awesome mining information. He said top 3 mining pools currently hold 60% of the global BTC hash rate combined. He corrected that 650. It's 60 is what he meant to say. But Tim, jumping over to a summary here of the book Soft War that you just described pretty well. If we can engage in a non-lethal form of warfare where nobody dies, and which decentralized control access the power over data and information in cyberspace, it's a net benefit for mankind. And that right, there's a lot to unpack in this type of a theory. You can definitely be forgiven for not fully understanding what we're talking about here, right? But we don't often get an opportunity like this, and the CEO of Marathon made it possible. So we were going to take that, definitely take that opportunity, right? Folks, there's a lot of different ways that this world ends up going, right? One of the ways, though, is great. You know, one of the ways that it goes is it creates the most prosperity for the most amount of people, and that all technologies are utilized for that purpose. I think Bitcoin in its final form could absolutely be a way for entities that don't necessarily see eye to eye to actually express their disintegration, their rage, and their borderline hate for one another in an actual productive way, right? And maybe that's what all of this was leading up to in the first place. So, Tim, a lot going on there, and I'm sure a few people are sitting there scratching their heads with their minds blown. There's a lot more to Bitcoin than they thought. Yes. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about this, look up the book. I've got it here, Soft War by Jason Lowry, and you will be very glad that you did. You will need to have a little bit of knowledge about some things to get started. But Tim, we're going to test your knowledge here. We're going to test your knowledge with a factoid of the day. It's today brought to you by the same people who brought it to you yesterday. That is the tax pros over at decrypted.tax. Right now, you can get 25% off their professional tax services. If you bought crypto and you're looking to sell, make sure that you know what the tax implications are going to be come tax time. Check out the link in the description. Now, Tim, what year was the first iPhone released? Was it A, 2005, 07, 09, or 2010? Come on, Tim. What is the answer to this question?
So I'm trying to remember, because I distinctly remember when my dad, this is not iPhone, but I remember the day my dad brought home a BlackBerry for his work. He got a work phone, a BlackBerry, and I thought it was so cool that you could use a phone to look up sports, like trivia and sports, scores and everything. You just look at a lot of information. It was just like a computer on a phone. So weird. I don't think the iPhone was out yet. I don't believe it was out yet either. And I'm wanting to say that probably was sitting in the, I probably had that memory 2004, 2005 area. I someone says 2005 for sure. I was leaning towards 2007. I was leaning towards B, and I see a lot of other people saying B as well, but some people saying C. Some people saying 2009. All right, so we're spread out here. It was after the financial crash, says Nathan. Man, you guys are all over the place right now. Oh, this is rough. All right, we're 1 for 1, right? So I can afford to lose this one, and we still have a giveaway at the end of the week. The chat's not helping me. They are completely split. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of answers for all. No, I don't see a lot of D's necessarily. So I think we can rule out 2010. I don't think it's A. I think it's down between B and C. But I'm going to go with my gut and say 2007. I'm sorry, Nathan. You sound very certain. I don't feel bad about going against Nathan. Nathan seems very certain. I'm going to say 07. B, 07. Nathan, do you forgive me? Do you forgive me now? I almost went with you. But we pulled it out. That's 2 for 2. T-shirt, when was the last time we started a week 2 for 2 with factoids of the day?
Tim, it's been a little while, but the first iPhone was released on June 29th, 2007. Steve Jobs announced the iPhone and January 9th, 2007 at the Macworld San Francisco keynote address. Yeah. Now, somebody mentioned the sexy new transition graphic that we've got going on here, and
it's heavy. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Let us know if you like. I think the one thing is like really. It was really cool the first time. I wonder if doing it like 27 times a show is just a little much. Let us know. Give us your feedback. I like it. Just T-shirt. I like it. Looks really pretty.
Good.
I'm just wondering if we need to have 2 different transitions and use it maybe a little more sparingly.
Sure.
That's my initial thoughts I'm having. But, we're having fun. We're talking stocks today. We're having a new transition. We're building big things. By the way, just so you guys know, Aaron Curry in chat saying more transitions. Let's just every single thing we do is a transition. Let's just have even in the middle of the same scene, just have a transition swipe randomly in the middle. That would be awesome. Oh, man. A big announcement stuff. We're going to be increasing next week, increasing some more of our members-only streams. Want to make sure you guys know about this. I'm going to start off with once a week, but probably going to start doing multiple times a week, doing some live trading. So if you guys have been trying to get in the trading game, you want to see someone do it, you want to work with them, you want to understand how to set up your trade in the first place, make sure you have the right take profits, stop losses, what indicators and ways and tactics you want to use for trading. We're going to do a whole lot more of that with our VIP trading group. Check out the link down below. Join the Pro Bros today. By the way, October 1st, click on it real quick. So look at the different options, T-shirt. I want to show people what they are looking at when they click on this option. These are the current prices that you pay right now. And if you sign up between now and October 1st, you get locked in for these prices. It's not a spinning wheel of death. I promise you there's actual prices. I thought I could delay a little longer. There we go. All right, well, we're going to figure it out. Anyway, if you buy between now and then, you'll be locked to those prices. Those prices will be increasing on October 1st when we make some big changes. We are seeing a high amount of demand and more people coming in our community. I love it. I want to see, my goal, guys, is to get to the end of 2025 with 3,000 members in our trading community and our vesting community. In there, we teach you guys how to trade. We show you how to trade. We talk about portfolios and the best way to build them so that you can set yourself up for wealth. We talk about risk management. That's a very, very key and important thing. If you are killer on the charts, but you don't understand how to manage your risk, you can get obliterated. It happens all the time. If you want to be a part of our membership options, check these out. Pro Bros is the one I recommend. Gets you into our VIP trading group. Go check it out right now. Again, price is going to be shooting to the upside later on. But with that said, T-Shroom, anything you want to say here before we transition?
Well, these are the prices right here.
Yeah.
So
spinning wheel of death is gone, and that's nice.
That's right.
There we go. All right, let's transition here. We're gonna get some Q&A, but first, I teased at the beginning of the show that there's a coin that I'm really, really close. I'm not gonna say I'm officially gonna do this and definitely gonna do this, but there's a coin that I am considering dropping from my portfolio and replacing. Let's check it out, and I'm gonna explain why that is. In case you missed it, we had a transition of a coin recently. Go ahead and share my screen here, T-Shroom. This is the brand new Polygon price chart. No, I'm not on the 12-month chart. I'm on the daily chart. This chart goes back here on Coinbase to September 4th. If I were to look at POL, POL over USDT, I believe, let's say we come down here to Bybit, then I can get a little bit more price history and come all the way back to when this whole thing started back in October of 2023. But this is not a new coin. This, of course, is the transition from Matic USD. I have held Matic now for a long time. I was bullish on Matic, but I'm going to tell you why I'm not necessarily as bullish on this move. The first thing is, whenever you have a transition like this, it is confusing for a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people that have maybe not been paying attention to crypto for a couple of months or years. They're going to come back in and say, what the heck happened to Matic? Why do I have this thing called POL in my portfolio, right? That's just what's going to happen. But the other thing is, for people like me who want to trade and look at historical analysis, this is going to be very, very hard. If you type in Matic USD, you can still find it on here, and you can go back and look at historical prices going back to its origination back here in 2021. But as a whole, that's not going to be what it puts you towards. It's going to push you towards POL, and POL just does not have a lot of data. And I thought, okay, well, maybe if it's not on the charts, maybe I'll be able to see all the information over in CoinMarketCap so we can continue to do our analysis over there. Oh, wait, no. When you hit all over here, that should show you the entire price action history of this asset. It goes back to when, T-Shroom? November of 2023. So we have just lost a major ability to track and do technical analysis on Matic. Now it's Polygon Matic. Sorry, it's not Matic anymore. Excuse me. Polygon POL. I mean, we don't have to call it that. It's just Polygon or POL. But we have lost the ability to do massive macro evaluations of Matic. This is going to cause confusion. And you might say, well, Tim, but the fundamentals are still great. The coin is still. I'm not predicting that it's going to go to zero. I think it still has a bull market of some types, but I think it does hurt the long-term momentum of the project. I think that looking for other options in the layer 2 Ethereum space is a viable solution. And we talked about it earlier. Optimism, or OP, is having a fantastic run at the moment. I'm looking at Optimism and Arbitrum. Arbitrum has had some recent massive unlocks, so that's kept the price to the downside. Yet Arbitrum leads the entire space in the most transactions of layer 2s on Ethereum. I think that we are going to see a transition where a lot of other people are in my same boat, and they're transitioning from POL over into other options like Optimism or Arbitrum. Now, some of you might not agree. Some of you might say that you want a lot. You think POL still has a big future. In fact, I see in here Retro Mike Tech, who is very smart. He's saying POL will melt faces. The question is, when we say melt faces, will it melt faces in a good way or a bad way? Will it melt your face because you look at your portfolio and it goes to zero? Yeah, that would melt my face as well. Or it's going to melt my face because my portfolio goes to 1 million. You know, I'm not here saying that I think that Polygon is going to die and go to zero, but I think the confusion is going to cause a lot more chaos in this bull market than people anticipate. I'm not even necessarily ready to say that I think on the coin market cap rankings or the total market cap, I'm not here saying that I think Optimism and Arbitrum definitely will pass Matic, or sorry, I keep saying Matic because I'm so used to it, but Polygon, although it absolutely could. Polygon sitting down here, T-shirt. Let's take a look at this. Polygon is at number 30 on coin market cap. This at one point was a top 10 coin. There's a lot of top 10 coins that fall out of the top 10, but normally ones that survive stay within at least the top 20. Most of them staying, somewhere in this area. Polygon has dropped all the way to 30. And if you keep on scrolling, where are we seeing the other ones behind it? Optimism's at 41. Current market cap 1.9 billion versus Polygon sitting here at 2.5. Optimism is not far behind Polygon whatsoever, T-Shroom. So I started this whole conversation by saying I'm not predicting it, but at this point, Arbitrum sitting at 43, Optimism 41, there's a very real chance that when we get to the end of this bull market, whenever that ends up being, we might see a new, higher ranked Ethereum layer 2, either Optimism, Arbitrum. Let me know in the chat which one you guys think it would be. Honestly, I think there's a lot of benefits to both Optimism and Arbitrum, and I'm heavily looking at that and saying, listen, I'm not saying Polygon goes to zero, but I do think it drags. I do think it gets outpaced by its own competitors. Crux says Arbitrum. Yeah, I mean, there's good arguments for arbitrary and optimism. What I might just do is take all of my Polygon and split it 50-50 into arbitrary and optimism. Honestly, that's kind of where I'm leaning at the moment. But T-Shroom, what are your thoughts? Does this transition scare you? Do you think it's a nothing burger? What's your thoughts about Polygon?
So 2 things. First of all, I do not play the Ethereum layer 2s. I don't have very much invested in the Ethereum layer 2s. I do hold a little bit of Polygon. Why? Because Polygon is actually quite heavily used, at least by me, at least by a lot of North Americans, because it is used to send USDT, USDC, and it's also you have to hold a little bit of it in your wallet to be able to send those stable coins and other coins that might be on Polygon. So that's why I hold it. I don't hold very much, right? Under $200 worth of Polygon. So, a negligible amount, an immaterial amount for some folks. But yeah, that's my whole thought. I think there will definitely be winners in Ethereum layer 2s. Don't get me wrong. Scaling Ethereum is very, very important. Those are just not the horses that I've picked for this bull run.
So. Yeah. Indie Halo says when Disney pops, people will pop, or POL. I think he means POL. It says PPL, but I think he meant POL. Will pop. And what he's getting at there is Polygon has a deal with Disney, and I want to take a look at Disney's stock here. But when we say Disney's going to pop, is it going to pop? I mean, Disney, it had a nice little run here in March of 2024, I guess a little bit, but there's a lot of, I'm not going to get into the politics of this because it is actually a political conversation. There's a lot of people that used to be big Disney supporters who no longer want to deal with it. Disney's had movies, shows, and several other things canceled here more recently. Parks, obviously they had the large parks in both Orlando, Florida. I grew up. I went to it several times a year sometimes. And then, of course, they have it out in California. There are people boycotting parks of Disney. I'm not saying that Disney stock is over and it's going to Disney to zero and we'll never hear from Disney ever again. But when we say Disney's going to pop, I'm not so confident, T-Shroom, that Disney will pop in a way that it does anything really that special. I mean, even when you look at the newest edition to what they have their new streaming services. There's a lot of people not liking what's coming out on that streaming service. They're taking off some old movies and shows that people used to love growing up because of different, again, political reasons. And they're replacing them with, to be very frank and fair, and I'm going to try to dance around this as best I can, woke movies. And America's showing that they're not really liking the families. The number one buyer of Disney is families. And families as a whole do not seem to be gravitating around the direction that Disney is going. So when we say that it's going to pop, I don't know. There's fundamental reasons there to think that Disney might, unless they change a whole lot, might have some problems moving forward.
Yep. I was hoping to find a more up-to-date version of this chart. Bear with me, Tim. This will be worth it. So I don't know what year this is, but it's Q2. I would imagine it's Q2 of 2024 or 2023. You can see where it derives most of its revenue. It's actually pretty close to. So it's get $14 billion from Disney Media and Internet Entertainment Distribution. And then Disney Parks, Experience, and Products is $7 billion. So it's making more from its media arm rather than its brick and mortar,
right,
on the ground, right? But it's got a giant amount of cost. It takes a lot of human beings to run those parks, and obviously a lot of costs go into producing content as well. But I think so, Tim. I will agree with you. I don't think Disney is very bullish right now, but if stockholders, and because there's a lot of very wealthy people that hold a large, by large I mean like more than 5% of Disney, right? And they're not going to stand for it forever, right? They're not all advocate investors that want to see the types of things that Disney is producing continue to be produced. They're not in it for the ideology; they're in it for the money. And and eventually they're going to say enough is enough, and there will be new management that comes in. That is a time that I will probably be buying up some Disney because it's such a globally recognized name like Coca-Cola,
Yes.
like Apple. I don't think that it's
Yes.
going anywhere in the long term, but it does have to get new management, or society has to just absolutely start loving what it's putting out. And right now, that's not the case.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of what I said. Is that a pop could happen if Disney. I don't even know if they need to come out and like apologize to anyone. I don't know if anyone's even asking them to apologize. Some people probably are. Just change. Just go back. It doesn't even have to get into political. Just start making good content again. Like good content, good videos. We're still in the influencer space. Start making good movies. Start making good TV shows. And I'm not saying like, just, you know what? I got a revolutionary idea for Disney and any other movie industry out there. How about we make some movies where we don't even address politics, right? How about we make stories that don't try to portray any political thought, either conservative or liberal? Just tell good stories, get some good actors. Don't have them trying to make their own individual point in the middle of the movie. Just tell a good story. That's what Americans want to see. And if they do that, yes, I think Disney as a whole can definitely boom and go back to the upside. But under current leadership and current decision-making, they're not going to do it.
So one comment and then one question for you, Tim. First comment, guys, if you're thinking Disney is going to be the key to Polygon success, I think you're overemphasizing how mature you're overestimating how mature crypto is. Outside impacts like Disney and a brand like that, I can understand the urge to think about that because the Federal Reserve, right? The Federal Reserve, the U.S. elections, they're going to have impacts on price for cryptos. But a partnership like Disney is not, in my opinion, I could be wrong, is not going to impact an asset like Polygon, right? It would take quite a heavy lift, and it's not in the interest of Disney to pump Polygon until it is, which that could change. But right now, the way that everything's set up, that is so far from what Disney cares about today. Question I had is, Tim, what is your favorite Disney movie? And you can't say Monsters Incorporated because that's mine.
No, you know what? I'm going to go with a goodie. I haven't watched this movie in a long time. I don't watch a lot of movies here, especially more recently. I genuinely enjoyed, when I was little, this movie. And I watched it back a couple of years ago with like a nephew of mine. And it was surprising, not adult like inappropriate, but it was amazing the amount of jokes that this movie made that only an adult would understand the punchline. And I was like, that's actually pretty genius. It's Winnie the Pooh. Go back and watch, and don't watch Winnie the Pooh that's been made more recently. Watch the old Winnie the Poohs, where the cartoons, you can almost see where the lines are skipping. The writers are pretty genius. Again, it was one of my favorite things as a kid, and even as an adult, I thoroughly enjoyed watching back through Winnie the Pooh movies. Unconventional. I bet you none of you had that on your bingo card, but I thoroughly enjoyed Winnie the Pooh.
You know what's funny? Fast fact for all the collectible folks out there, all the collectors. I pawn some stuff every now and then, like big TVs and stuff whenever I move. And one thing I noticed in the pawn shops is they have a lot of like VHS Disney movies. I don't know if this is something. Let us know. Are you a collector? Let us know in the comments in the chat. Why are VHS Disney movies so expensive? Maybe there's some. They're going to use them after the apocalypse, right? You just get yourself a VCR and those VHS tapes. They're durable. That is their internet. If the internet goes down, they'd be good to have to keep your kids entertained. That's for sure.
We're going to wrap up the show, guys. It's 4:03. We got a member stream Q&A at 4:30. So here in about 30 minutes, make sure if you're one of the VIP trading members, you're in there. I'll leave you guys because I shocked everyone with my number one pick. Let me give you guys number two. This one should have been on your bingo cards. It's a classic. It's Disney. It'll never not be good. Remember the Titans is my number two Disney movie. That one I think was on people's bingo card for Tim. That makes a lot more sense. But you got to shake it up every now and then. You got to take people by surprise. Guys, that's all we have for you in today's show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, hit the follow button over on X, and share this video with all of your friends. Yes, we strayed a little bit from crypto, but we still talked about it. We dabbled a little more in the stock world. Give us feedback in the comments down below. Did you like this show, or do you want us to stick to more crypto? We want your feedback because we want to help you guys as best as we can. With that said, we will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Adios.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots that bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms news, got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Tryna make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots like bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros.